Lincoln, how are you?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm good. Dude, Fred just replied to me,
Yeah, what did he
trolling
say?
me. He said,
Yeah, I got a
come
little
tell us
scuffle with him
about,
too.
don't lie to yourself, Fred. Don't lie to yourself. This is ridiculous.
I
What
totally
a,
get it.
what a joke. No, he's just trolling.
Yeah.
Which is totally fine. It's welcome. It's part of the fun. Part of the, what is X without trolling? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I see Grant in the crowd. If he wants to come up and talk us to sleep, he's welcome to do that. Lincoln, how is FSD doing for you?
Really good. It's changing. It's interesting. I have 3.6, but it's still changing. They must be changing little things here and there. But I'm just waiting, I'm on hardware 3. So I'm just waiting for that 12.5. So
Do you have 12.3.6 or 12.4?
3.6.
Okay.
Yeah.
What percent of your miles do you use it on?
I haven't been using it as much lately, so it was quite high. Now I don't know, 70.
Why did it drop?
I don't know. No good reason. Like if I'm in a hurry, I can't use it. If I have to just get somewhere in a hurry, so I've been doing that. So
You think it's too hesitant? It's not confident enough? 12.3.6.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if I want to get somewhere quick, I just want to take over. Even though it doesn't probably make any difference. Not much, but in my head it does. So. But also I've had problems with the insurance. So if I have Tesla insurance and it will get dinged on something, then I'll have to drive in order to improve the score. So if you use FSD, it doesn't improve your score if you made a mistake that day or something. So that takes down on my percentage too.
Okay, so FSD miles don't count. So if you have made a mistake, you have to drive by yourself to improve your score back up so that your
Correct.
insurance amount doesn't. I got you. Interesting.
So yeah, so if you have a forward collision warning and then you use FSD, you will keep that score and just rack up the miles, because the miles do count on FSD towards your score. But you'll have if you drive 1 mile, get a forward collision warning, and then drive 99 miles on FSD, then you'll have 100 miles with that collision warning, and the score will be just based on that 1 mile. So it'll be really bad.
Yeah, that's something Tesla should probably change.
Yeah, big time.
Because that's disincentivizing using FSD. Yeah,
Yep.
Thank you for noting that. That's good feedback.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I know a lot about Tesla insurance. I've been using it for a while, and yeah.
You should do a post about that. You should do a post about that.
I have. I've been vocal about it, but none of the influencers use insurance and have it affect so that it's not on their radar. It's a big issue. I know numerous people have left Tesla insurance because of it. So, yeah.
Okay, we can talk about it when Omar comes. Inflexity, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. What's the news of the day?
Well, I was just talking to the CEO of BP Pulse, and he's saying that they have made some considerable progress with the Californian government, and they will be deploying approximately 10 new charging stations for heavy duty trucks this year alone. And most of them will probably be Tesla chargers.
Okay, thank you. So I was reviewing yesterday's episode for my patrons for the summary, and I think I missed your comment. Did you say Giga India is set to start production is at the end of 2025? Is that the plan? Is that what you said yesterday?
No. We had an article come out in India yesterday, day before yesterday, and basically it was from a government source apparently, and they were saying that Tesla had stopped the talks for the production line for the last 3 months, but the government was expecting that they should begin either the factory production or whatever they consider as beginning the factory in 2026. It wasn't very clear but I would consider it construction and not production.
Okay, do you think it's going to happen?
I doubt it right now because the prime objective of building in India is that you have a low cost model. And if we only have a sub 30K model and not have something like in the range of 20K to 25K volume production, making it in India doesn't make much sense. You probably should have something on the roadmap in the range of 15,000 to 25,000. And then India is a very good place to produce for the rest of Asia and the rest of the world.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. I'm looking at these Model 3 resale values, average listing prices of the Model 3 on Car Gurus. And the $25,000 used EV tax credit is acting as gravity. If you have a couple years old, 3-4 years old Model 3 going for 25,000, people aren't willing to pay for 1 to 2 year old Model 3 for $27,000-$28,000. They'd rather get the $25,000 slightly older Model 3 and get that $4,000 EV tax credit. And that's essentially acting as gravity. And I think the same will probably happen for the Model Y as Tesla starts, the rumors of the refresh model starts proliferating. I think we're going to see quite a bit of a decline in the resale values of the Model Y because people will just wait for that $25,000 threshold. Finflexity.
Yeah, I was just, reading up on a research paper a few days ago, and it was actually on this similar topic. And basically, it was in 2018, I think from Stanford or Yale. I don't remember exactly. But the researchers there hypothesized this same thing, that the secondary credit in the secondary markets for EVs would essentially eat up the cost for the need for a lower cost vehicle for a period of time. They hypothesized around 4 years, but I think it will probably end up going longer until the secondary market credit, kind of boils down.
Yeah. When was this research paper written?
I think it was something in 2015 to 2020. It was definitely not after the COVID pandemic. It was before the pandemic.
Wow. Okay. Can you send that paper to me? Just a link, just send a link or maybe like reply to the space with that link. I would really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'd like to read that.
Yeah, I'll try to find it. I have it saved somewhere.
Yeah. Well, excellent call, whoever wrote that research paper. So I'm going to read that. And this is also, troubling for new vehicle sales, obviously, because if you have, both Model 3 and Model Y, couple years old, reasonable miles, going for 25,000 and qualifying for $4,000 tax credit, people aren't willing to pay twice as much for a new one. So this is a major reason why Tesla sales are at 1.8 million and probably going to be like that for a little bit here. But beyond that, I think there's some pent up demand as these rates come down. So there's lots of macroeconomic news that happened in the last 24, 48 hours. And I see Ellie in the crowd. If he can please come up, if he's available, I would like to discuss geopolitics in the Middle East with him. Maybe get some updates. There's also some news on geopolitics front as well. Alexander, how are you?
Hello, I'm good. Me and a friend is on our way home from the beach. I listened to your interview yesterday. Really good. And I can tell everyone that listening, please follow, become a member on YouTube and listen to the interview. I can not recommend enough.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to pin at the top of your screens the chapters of my interview with Chris, Dirty Tesla. It was a really, really good one. The first 5-10 minutes kind of starts out slow. You may have heard of those things already, but especially the second half of the interview, I think is very informative. And I really like the format. It actually worked out better than I thought. The link to join as a member to the YouTube channel is at the top of your screens. It's only $2.99 a month. If you were, hesitating that, the X subscription amount is too high, this is a really good alternative. $2.99 a month, and you get 1 week advance, at least a few days to 1 week advance look at these one-to-one interviews. And highly recommend watching this one. The feedback from members of my YouTube channel has been excellent. And I think most of them have already clicked and watched it too, as I see from the data. Ellie, did you get a chance to watch it?
Yeah, I watched the whole thing like a minute after you posted.
Thank you. What did you think of it?
It was really good. I'm not a big fan of his videos, but because I just thought that he's a bit like not too serious about what he does, but just as a I have no complaints or I have nothing against him, just not my cup of tea. But in the interview, he's so solid, like he's very conscious and he's very like he's knowledgeable. And every time you ask him a question, he really thought about it, and I really enjoyed it. Very educated,
Yeah.
educated.
Thank you. Yeah, Chris is an extremely genuine person. He is a true Midwest gentleman. And I met him a couple of times in person as well over the years. And I met his wife as well, Stephanie, and she was on the interview for about 5 minutes, giving me her thoughts about the wife test, how her perception of FSD evolved. And you can see that in the chapters as well at the top of your screens. Highly recommend joining as a member. I think it is well worth the money for $2.99 a month. And also it really helps out the channel as well and TSLA Live as well. All right, Team Flexity.
Yeah, I just forgot what I was going to say.
Okay.
I think it was about.
Let me go back to Ellie then, because I want to focus on geopolitics for a little bit. Ellie, any news around Middle East? I think Israel had an attack on, and then there's some pushback as well. So as you predicted, there is some escalation of geopolitical risk in the Middle East. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, sure. So on Omar's Space, we talked about politics like 2 weeks ago when I mentioned how I'm focusing on what's going on your side because we really need a strong leader to come forward and lead us. And we don't want big war, right? So we want everything to be under control. So we had a missile coming from Lebanon. Some people think it's from Iran, and they killed like 13 kids in the north of Israel. And Israel, is retaliation. They fought back and they killed some number two, like a big shot. He surfaced from the bunkers or something, and we killed him. So now, basically, as for right now, tomorrow I'm supposed to be on a boat and walk, and the guy told me that everything will be the same if the war won't strike. Like we expecting war like to happen every second now.
What do you mean? Can you qualify what you mean by war? Because I mean, this is kind of, starts of it. So do you mean like a full-fledged ground forces getting involved kind of thing?
Yeah, so for us, as you probably know, like we are in the state of war for a long time, like we have soldiers spread out like all over the place. We have mandatory service, right? So we have kids all the time in Gaza and some other places. And since whatever happened in October, almost all reserves are spread out and either in Gaza or in the north. Now, since I don't know, like 2 weeks ago, things escalated towards the warways. I don't know, towards war in the north. So something happening with Lebanon, with Hezbollah, and with Iran. So basically, if something will happen with Lebanon, that's more like that's a big one. So whatever we do in Gaza, once again, I don't want to talk about what's going on there because I feel sad for any soul that lost. But with Lebanon, it will be on another scale. So they have so many missiles and smart missiles, guided by GPS, guided by this, guided by that. So if they will attack us, it will be like full scale. Like none of the day-to-day business will, be maintainable. Like I
Okay.
go to work.
Let me ask. Wait, hold on. You go to war?
No. I was about to say I go to work every day, but if something will happen, that's it. Like everybody will stay in shelters.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Um, okay. What percent probability do you assign a full-fledged war happening in the Middle East in the next 6 months? And let's define it as people stop going to work, instead they go to shelter.
Honestly, I don't believe that anything will happen. I believe that we are stressed about it. I believe that the media wants us to believe, the politicians want us to believe that it will happen. I don't believe that it will happen, because if something in that scale will start, I think it might go as like a third world kind of thing. So optimistically, I don't believe that anything will happen, but things are very on the edge here. So nothing is really going on. The industries, almost everything is very slow right now.
Okay. Okay. So 20% probability?
Yeah.
Okay.
15. Yeah.
15, 20%. Got it. I'm looking at the oil market, oil prices as an indication of, what the markets believe will happen. And oil prices have been declining, reflecting some weakness in the global growth figures. But if there were such a full-fledged war in the Middle East, I think we would see oil prices jump. And that has implications on the Fed's plans to cut interest rates, obviously. So that's why it's important. These things all connect to each other and we should track them. And I hope that you give us an update every now and then about the geopolitical risk in the Middle East.
I
Thank
will
you,
make
Ellie.
sure to come every day to update you guys.
Thank you. Inflexity.
Yeah, I was going to say that we actually had a Hezbollah leader come out and say that they aren't going to do theatrics this time. Instead, they're going to plan out something and then execute it against Israel. I think the risk is more than obviously before, and I think it could impact oil a lot.
Well, the thing is, though, in the past, at least the last time Iran sent missiles to Israel, as I remember it, nothing hit and there were no casualties and they were all intercepted, right? So why would that be different this time?
I think it's a statement that last time it was meant to be, it was meant to show the force of power that they have on their side. That's my opinion. And this time, I think since it's a big deal that they assassinated the leader of Hamas, a leader of Hamas, then I think the escalation this time will be bigger than last time. However, not at a scale of war.
Ellie, do you agree with that statement?
It's so complicated. Not really. I don't. We have a lot of things going on behind this, behind the stage. So no, I think some big leaders, big countries are really talking with us, with them, and trying to avoid this kind of thing. I believe that they allowed some strikes, like guerrilla strikes every now and again and stuff like that, but not a full scale.
Well, you guys are pretty close to each other because neither of you think there will be a full-scale war in the next 6 to 9 months. But looks like maybe there's further escalation in the region because of recent events. Does that sound like a consensus?
Yeah, I can say that. Yeah.
Okay. We'll keep our eye on this. If there are any geopolitical experts in the audience, you're welcome to request to speak and share your views.
Oh, by the way, Yaman, my
Yeah.
wife is an expert on the matter.
Really? Okay. Well, she's welcome to come join us if she wants to.
I will make sure that you will join us every now and again.
Okay. Do you want to share any news with us or no?
Oh, I'm. You know what? I'm afraid. Like until the very first day where they tell
Okay.
me what to do. Yeah.
Okay, don't worry about it. That's fine. That's fine. Light
But I can
spirits.
bring my wife if you want.
Yeah. I mean, she's definitely welcome. That would
Okay,
be
I will
awesome.
raise my hand once he's here. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. Light spirit.
Yeah, I have a question about this. Like, normally the topic of geopolitics is forbidden to discuss. So, what made you open up to that idea of discussing this publicly?
No, it's not. It's not a forbidden topic. It's never been a forbidden topic. It's just that there is rising geopolitical risk in the world over the last year or two, and it is not an area of expertise for me. That may be the reason why we didn't focus on it before, but it's come to a point, I think, that we should build that capability in TSLA Live. So I am searching for experts on the topic. This is something I don't know much about, and I want to understand. We need to understand this better for investment purposes, even, as well as humanitarian purposes.
Yeah, I agree. We should definitely try to learn more about it. And I wish more people took an interest in learning more about what's happening.
Complexity.
Yeah, I actually think that today's news from the Bank of England reducing the rate by 0.25%, I think that's a good sign that maybe we could have a rate cut later this year.
What's the 0.25% you mentioned?
Yeah, I think it was 0.5% from the Bank of England this morning. I'll check it up.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much other banks' actions impact the Fed plan. So yesterday, obviously, there was a press conference. I listened to the press conference after yesterday's space, and the quick note I read during yesterday's space from Nick T is pretty representative of my understanding as well. So they seem open to cutting in September. They didn't commit to it, and neither, I wouldn't expect them to commit to it. But I think it's pretty reasonable expectation at this point that they will cut in September. What is really open to debate is what they will do after that. Will they cut 25 basis points every meeting going forward? Will they cut every other meeting? Is it going to be one and done? And that is where the debate is going forward. Complexity?
Yeah, I actually read up on Bloomberg this morning that bond traders were pricing in about 3 rate cuts this year. Bond data traders
Yeah,
were pricing in
so
that.
what happened this morning is there's some data announced called initial weekly claims for unemployment benefits. It is a concurrent indicator of the employment market, and more than expected people applied for unemployment benefits, meaning there were more layoffs in the last week or so than expected. So that would indicate, that would actually corroborate my theory that employment market is weakening quicker than people expect. And this type of stuff I analyze under the account Macro Analyst, who is the co-host. You can follow Macro Analyst, the co-host for macroeconomic analysis. Ellie.
Yeah, Anna, my wife, she's here.
Thank you. Anna, how are you? Welcome.
Hi, I'm fine. Thank you so much.
Welcome to
So a bit
TSLA
of
Live.
background about me. I understand you're talking about geopolitics.
Yes.
So I've graduated in political science and mastered in political science as well. I worked at the Israeli government and defense industry.
Thank you. That's excellent. And we need your expertise today. What do you think about what's happening in the last few days? I know there's a huge history behind it. I was born and raised in Turkey, so I have some familiarity with the topic. But in the context of geopolitical risk, do you agree that the risk is rising? And let's say, maybe we can put this in a specific question of what percent probability do you assign to a full-fledged war in the Middle East starting in the next 6 to 9 months?
Okay, so let's divide it to two things. I'll start from the end. The percentage of developing a full war in the Middle East, I think the likeliest probability is that Israel and Lebanon will start something. I don't think that Syria and Iran will get involved in it themselves. But mentioning Syria and Iran, I want to come back to the first part of your question. And we need to remember that it's not an in-house conflict. It's a much, much broader war, and it's just satellite countries that are in the. Sorry, we have a dog barking here.
That's okay. We don't hear it at all. And this is really helpful. Please continue.
Right. So there's the broader effect of the war. Like, I really believe in geopolitical powers and satellite countries as a political approach. So I see the conflict is the broader conflict between the United States, Russia, China, Iran. You can see while we all are focused in Gaza and in Ukraine before that, many bases in Africa were abandoned by the American army, and the Russian took their place. So while we all looking at the West and ignoring Africa, it allows them to do strategic moves in the military wise.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I was actually watching an interview on the topic about a month ago, and the person said geopolitical risk can rise exponentially very quickly because if there is conflict in one part of the world, it kind of opens the door for others to start something in another part of the world. If the US is busy in Ukraine, let's say, then somebody who is looking for an opportunity, a country that's looking for an opportunity to start something in the Middle East, for example, is more likely to do so. Do you agree with that statement?
I think it's exactly what I said. It's the bigger, broad conflicts on the satellites. It's not satellite countries. It's not. We can view it not as Israel, Palestine, or Israel, the Arab world. We can view it as Russia and America fighting for a strong position in the Middle East, as Israel very familiar with the United States in this area. So obviously, each conflict can be used as a decoy to engage in something else in another part, for sure. And this is the way you should look at it, as a broader situation, which this is just one frame of the bigger picture.
Now, so I personally look at the oil prices as an indication of what the geopolitical risk might be today. And oil prices haven't moved up at all. In fact, they've moved down. So I guess at least oil market participants agree that the geopolitical risk in the Middle East isn't as high. Maybe the probability of a war starting isn't very high as well. Seeing what in the near future would change your mind that a war is likely to start in the near term? What kind of developments would lead you to change your opinion on that?
Wow. So regarding the oil prices, I must admit I'm not fluent at this topic at all. I should be more, and I should focus on that a bit more. Thank you for the reminder. And regarding the whole going war, I think it can have many developments. Not all can be planned. I mean, something happening with the hostages by accident, something happening in some. I mean, let's remember how World War started with the assassination of like this not so major diplomat. So it's always in risk, and I think it's just warming up each time in one place. Hopefully, it won't catch up fire nearby. in my view, especially as one who's living in those zones. And that's it. That's it for me, I guess.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you also follow the situation in Taiwan at all?
No, we are both not following with whatever's going on there.
Like I'm aware of the situation and the chips being at risk, right? How do you
Yeah.
Shababim, it's
Yeah,
chips, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm aware of the topic that it's the manufacturing of chips over there, but I'm not quite sure. It's something with China, right? And between China and I don't remember who.
Okay, thank you very much. And that was extremely helpful. I really appreciate your expertise, and you're always welcome to, if there is a development that we might have missed, you're always welcome to join us and share your views. Welcome to the space.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Hopefully, I won't be too busy this weekend hiding from missiles.
I hope so too. I hope everything works out fine. But, I wish the best for you guys. All right. Light Spirit, is geopolitics a topic that you focus on?
It was a topic I would like to focus more on. Unfortunately, my friends and workers and whatever don't want to talk about politics. They think it's an off-topic thing. Avoid that because it's a hot potato. Brings up too many divergent opinions and so forth and so on.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that I think most people dismiss as unpredictable, but the fact is, it's very material. I mean, what happened in early 2022 with Russia going into Ukraine influenced the Fed actions as well. Oil prices surged, and that fed into other parts of the inflation and kind of sped up the Fed's actions.
Yeah, and we need to know these things. We need to be informed, and if we don't talk about it, we're going to have these echo chambers of what we believe here. And we keep, because of social media's algorithms, you just keep seeing your own echo chamber. By talking with others, you kind of break out of that echo chamber and you can see other points of view.
Thank you. Finflexity. Finflexity. Okay. All right. Let's see what else is new here. Any questions, comments, please request to speak. At the top of your screens is a link to YouTube, my interview with Dirty Tesla, Chris. We talked about FSD. That was a really good conversation. We talked about Optimus, robotaxis, and also in the last half hour of the interview, I highly recommend the last half hour of the interview if you haven't seen it yet. I created a spreadsheet of items that I believe are fundamentally important to Tesla's intrinsic value. And these items, for example, robotaxi timeline or Optimus timeline, Optimus production ramp, there's wide range of expectations. So I'm going to use that spreadsheet and I'm going to bring in some of the influencers in the Tesla space and also some of our permanent speakers, frequent speakers, and try to build some consensus through deep analysis of these topics. So I highly recommend watching that last half hour of the interview. Ellie?
Thanks, Iman. Can you ask the question you asked him regarding the 1 billion robots? Some of the people here, I would love to hear more about it, like what people think about it.
Yeah, I'm curious about that too. If somebody wants to come up and share their views on Optimus production, you're welcome to request to speak. Finflexity.
Yeah, you were asking about Taiwan earlier, and I have been keeping tabs on it, and I think we haven't had any news for the last 3 or 4 weeks. It was yesterday that they ordered some new weapons, but that's pretty frequent in the area.
Okay, thank you. AJ, how are you?
Hey, Yaman. Good. How are you?
I'm good. Give me 1 second, AJ.
Sure.
House, what's your question?
My question?
House?
I don't really have a question. It's more so about what you were speaking on the Taiwan thing. I don't follow too much closely
Yeah,
on all that
first-time
stuff.
speakers are limited to asking questions,
Oh, sorry.
and
Well,
you
I
requested
guess my one.
speak. You requested speak a million times in the last 2 episodes. I do not appreciate that. And I sent you a tweet asking what your question is. You didn't reply to it either. If you continue to request to speak, increase my moderation needs in the space, I will ban you from the space. Thank you. AJ,
Hey, Yaman.
how is FSD doing for you?
FSD, so I'm still on 12.4.3 stack, hardware 3. But just, 12.4.3 alone is a significant change from definitely long on those days of 11s for sure. So I'm excited for 12 to test out 12.5.1 or whichever version that comes on hardware 3. Yep.
So you haven't yet experienced no steering wheel nag.
Oh no, I did. I have. It's in 12.3, right? So I
It's
actually
in 12.4. I don't think it's in 12.3. I think it's in 12.4.
Yeah, I said 12.4.3. I'm just speaking a little too quick, so my bad. So 12.4.3. Yeah, so I actually even did a video to I wanted to see the response time of the system, and it was kind of a geeky thing that I thought that I did, and it's just for seeing exactly how quickly does the system respond, just compared to the old putting the pressure on the steering, and it actually is significantly more responsive in tracking driver attentiveness is what I found. So that was a very cool, learning experience that it's not only allowing me to go hands-free completely, it actually, to me, it makes me feel more safer because I trust that it's actually tracking my attention really well. And then also notice when I resume attention, so what I was doing, I started looking at the screen, and in about 8 seconds is when the warning came up. And so when I look back straight at the road as if I'm pay attention, that warning went away in less than 2 seconds. So very, very impressed with 12.4, the hands-free in 12.4.3. Is no going back from it. As simple as that.
AJ, is no steering wheel nag going to lead to a major step up in user experience?
You know what, Yaman? I really, really, really hope so. And especially coupled with what I'm hearing, the feedback on 12.5.1 from long time, very more so close to neutral, maybe somewhat, aggressively neutral, FSD testers, and they are coming up with great, comments about 12.5.1's ability to be more human-like. So I definitely think that this is a step in the right direction where sequentially, so we went hands-free first, and now that we have hands-free, now the system has a massive change and step change from 12.4 to 12.5. It's gone, based on the feedback, I'll say that for sure, not my own personal testing, seemingly in the right direction as far as getting much closer to the autonomy, the robotaxi stage that we are marching towards. Yeah, so I'm loving it. Yep.
Okay, I have more questions for you, but before that, Rachel Taylor just became a new member of the YouTube channel. Thank you very much, Rachel. Becoming a member of the YouTube channel is only $2.99 a month. So to the extent that you've been discouraged by the X subscription price, I recommend becoming a member of the YouTube channel. And this will give you advanced look at my interview with Dirty Tesla. And the feedback from members have been excellent. All the comments, all the reactions to the video have been excellent. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, the fact that this was my first interview and it worked out so good is a good indication. I think it's only going to get better. So Highly recommend becoming a member to the YouTube channel. The link is at the top of your screens, and the chapters of the interview is also at the top. AJ, do you think we'll see a major change in the take rate, FSD take rate, because of 12.5?
Yes.
Okay, can you define it? Like, what percent take
To
rate do you expect in
I'll
Q4,
tell
let's
you,
say?
I don't know about the percentage, but let me say why I said an emphatic yes. The reason I said emphatic yes is because my son, he's 21. He has learned to drive on a 3, and he has a lot of experience on FSD because he would drive my car once in a while, and he used FSD. And he had turned away from using FSD in street driving back in 11 days, and even when 12 came out, he was so turned off that he said, I'm not going to even give it a shot, Dad. I'm good with the highway. So with 12.4.3 with the hands-free, that's when he tested it first after a gap of 11, and he is like, he was blown away. And this kid is, he stays very neutral and subdued in general. So that is my personal, tells me, okay, wow. So you have somebody who's been a constant nonstop critic of the system, and now this person is kind of like, wow, this is crazy. That's how I'm basing my thoughts that yes, it should increase the uptake.
Okay, Tesla Hype also became a new member of the YouTube channel. Thank you very much, Tesla Hype, and thank you for Rachel Taylor. I really appreciate that. AJ, can you put a specific figure on it? What do you expect the FSD take rate to be, or number of users of FSD to be by year end?
So I don't have the stats like what they are now. Are they? I don't know what they are now. Like I'm not sure how to answer that in the terms
Yeah, I
of.
can give you maybe a starting point.
Okay.
So let's say today we have a couple 100,000 daily active users of FSD. Okay, by July, let's say. This is by my estimate. It can be totally wrong. Okay, couple 100,000 daily active users, and let's say the take rate in the eligible fleet, okay, is around 10%. So where do you
Okay.
expect it to be by year end?
I would expect. I want to still stay conservative. I'm going to expect that to double,
Okay,
and
so
I'm
you
saying that's
expect,
conservative.
yeah, yeah. I think that's probably where I am as well. That's where I am as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's based off of we have been we all have been watching, and we know FSD's progress and its growth over time, and it's now I think the curve is like really starting to point like very sharply up, and so it may, yeah, I think if we were to revisit this question maybe after, I don't know, maybe 12.6 or something, I think we may have a very different answer at that point in the positive direction.
What do you expect from 12.6?
Well, I mean, if the sort of 5x increase, right? So with Elon saying from 4 to 5 and 5 to 6, is if I'm extrapolating the same. I mean, say it's again everything, like when things start to double in itself, then it becomes it's a compound, so it just exponentially grows. So 10 becomes to 20, and then 20 becomes to 40%. So that's what I'm going with.
Justin Stretch says FSD take rate will triple in 2024. There you go. Finflexity.
Who are you going to have a coffee bet with? So far, looks like you have no candidates.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been very selective with coffee bets this year, trying to learn from mistakes for now. Finflexity.
Yeah, we actually just had some good news on the economic front. Hershey's reported their earnings, and apparently it dropped like something 20 or 25% year on year. Revenues dropped 25% year on year. And their commentary is basically that consumers can't even afford chocolate anymore, and discretionary spending is going way down.
Yeah, I wouldn't classify that as good news. Economy weakening is never good news. And what the Fed needs to see is inflation declining for cuts. And like I mentioned earlier, a 25 basis point cut, if it's one and done, or if it's one every other meeting, I don't know if it's going to be enough. I think the Fed is behind the curve in cutting rates. If you want more information around this topic, follow Macro Analyst, the co-host. AJ, let's stick with FSD. Sorry for the disruption. Finflexity, if you're going to change topics, you have to clarify with me first. Just for fun.
Yeah, question for AJ or anyone else using 12.5 or 12.51. Just curious what you think in terms of for people that aren't in the Tesla bubble, just a regular person, if they had the latest FSD version, do you think they would be comfortable using it as sort of taking them on their daily commute at this point, or would it sort of potentially mess up and then turn them off from continuing to use it for sort of a daily commute experience?
Yeah, we talked about that in the interview with Chris as well. Chris's wife Stephanie joined us for about 20 minutes. We talked about the wife test, her experience using FSD in the last 2 years, where she started, how her perception of FSD progressed, why that progress happened, and what would have happened if if Chris wasn't there. And I just posted a comment in live chat, also pointing this out as well, and that the Dirty Tesla interview was well worth $2.99 a month, and pointing out Stephanie joined us as well. Yeah, I thought that was a really nice kind of spin on the interview a little bit to change on it. I asked Chris a question, he couldn't answer. He called his wife, basically, is what happened. Anyway, AJ, would you like to answer just for fun's question?
Yeah. So just for fun, so I don't have 12.5 yet. So what I'm sharing is again based off of what I'm hearing, and I do pay a lot more attention to FSD related posts than maybe other perhaps posts. So I'd say parsing through that, if a person who had never used FSD before, that's your question, right? That how would they feel? All right, so I have noticed, like many people that I have given like test drives to over time and stuff, maybe say majority of the people, it's still bizarre to me why this happens, but it does happen where the very first instance of something that the car does that they're like, oh, what's happening right now, which their brain perceives as this is something that the car may not be able to handle. And that could be as simple as maybe a little stutter at the stop sign where it's like creeping for some more visibility. They are quick to kind of say no. This is like they just don't want to deal with it. So so if the people were a little bit more open-minded, they would see the way this is heading towards. But right off the bat, if people sat in the car, if there could be a scenario where there might be an intervention required, and so it's not exactly an intervention-free release. And perhaps some of us know that the idea is not to make it intervention-free. It's never going to be this. It's a march of the nines. It's not the march of the hundreds. So yeah, I don't know if that gives you anything more than what you on the lines of what you were looking for.
Just for fun.
Yeah, I think all good. Thanks.
A question for you, just for fun. Do you think 12.5 is going to lead to a major increase in the FSD take rate?
I do. Yeah, I think it's very hard to sort of quantify, but definitely based, I've been doing various searches on, the latest version and reading all the X comments. And it definitely seems like a step change. And I think the FSD beta tracker as well, even though it's probably a bit early for that still, it's showing a significant improvement. So just given the increased usefulness, I got to think it'll add a material increase. I guess, unfortunately, it seems like just playing through the numbers, it still may not be like a huge jump in terms of profits, but I would think with this version and hopefully the next version.
Let me ask you something. we're getting a lot of static, so I'm going to put you on mute. Off the top of your head, without looking, what do you think the Tesla FSD tracker is showing right now in miles to critical disengagement?
Yeah, so for, I think, 12.5, 12.51, I've mainly been tracking the city numbers, and I think it was in like the several hundred, like 400, 500, 600 miles maybe yesterday, and I think today it dropped down maybe to like 200 something for city miles per critical disengagement.
Yeah. 229 for city miles to critical disengagement, 337 for miles to critical disengagement overall for 12.5 and 12.5.1. And then 12.5.1 is 221 in the city, 262 overall critical disengagement. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add, I think as it gets into this like several hundred, 2, 3, 4, 500 plus, hopefully, it ends up being above 500, if not 1,000 plus soon. Just seems like, if people are doing a daily commute of maybe, 30 to 60 miles, if they're seeing several days without any disengagement, I feel like that gets to a very useful stage.
And Elon tweeted and said they see a path to doubling miles to disengagement in August, by August. So I guess, so I shared with my patrons that I expect 500 miles between critical disengagements by year end. So that would be in line, but anything above that would be amazing. All right, Ramesh.
Yeah, so Tesla is constantly changing model, right, with every release, like 12.4, 12.5. But currently FSD is not feature complete. So I I kind of feel that they are not completely testing what existing model, let's say 12.5, let's say, can offer. I believe they should complete the functionality, maybe the actual smart summon, banish, um, closed roads, um, handling for emergency vehicles, etc. See what the current model does, and then move on to next one. Right now, what I feel is they are changing model every now and then. When they introduce new model, obviously it brings um, more smoothness or reduces interventions, but we really don't know that old model was capable of with, let's say, reversing, etc., etc. So the what do you guys think?
Yeah, Omar is not here right now, so you have to ask your questions in 10 words or fewer, otherwise you lose me midway through your sentence. But if anybody wants to answer that question, you're welcome to do so.
I'm guilty of the same. Sorry.
Yeah, I think something around like my parents dropped me as a kid, so I have short attention span. Wave or Ailey?
Thanks. So, quick question: when Omar took somebody from the space a few days ago, they went to the highway and they were on the carpool. Now, my question is, and anyone here knows if FSD can basically identify that there are more than enough people in the car so it can run on carpool?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think Ramesh, I think the first 10 words, if I remember correctly, you were talking about, I think you said Tesla should focus on completing the features rather than,
Correct.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. See. Right now, my problem is
Well, the
there.
thing, so here's the
Yeah.
problem. You don't have to add any more words. You're way above your 10-word limit. My understanding is that Tesla is really focused on getting the 99% of it very smooth, comfortable, so that people start using it rather than focusing on these parking lots where it's frankly, it's more of a party trick right now. I mean, if you look at Waymo, Waymo doesn't go into a parking lot to pick you up. You actually have to walk to a pickup spot. And Tesla FSD today does already better than that. So, they're in the best position to pick their focus areas, priorities, and I trust the management on that front. And they seem to be doing really, really well. They're developing a scalable and ultimately profitable solution that I think will be very successful and transform transportation. So I'm excited. I highly recommend people watch the Dirty Tesla interview in full, especially the second half. Chris actually surprised me in some of his comments. He is pretty bullish, and I'm going to have him on again. But yeah, Wave, go ahead.
Yeah, Chris is terrific. I had a question about the definition that Musk has for critical disengagement. Do we have a good understanding what that is and how it's tagged? Is it an internal, something that Tesla's doing, or is he
I
just
mean,
using?
I don't know what his definition is, obviously, like I can't read his mind, but my understanding is that he doesn't quite differentiate between intervention and disengagement. I don't think. I think he just overall sees all human input as error. And if I had to guess, however, I think critical disengagement is basically if you didn't disengage, you would get into an accident. So Omar in yesterday's space elaborated on this a little bit. On the Tesla FSD tracker, it is pretty subjective. So it's the testers, it's self-reported data. So if somebody thinks they're going to get into an accident, or whatever they deem is critical. I mean, there's some guidelines that Elias gives them, but still, it is self-reported. And if somebody deems that it's critical, then they'll just put it down as a critical disengagement. Whereas I think Tesla has a much better understanding of what a disengagement, whether it's critical or not, because they can actually predict that a car is about to get into an accident. And they have all the data from the cameras, they have all the car telemetry. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Tesla's internal data shows better results today than what we see on the Tesla FSD tracker. Just for fun, would you agree with that statement?
Sorry, I stepped out for a second.
Wave?
What I was trying to, I hope you're right, and that's how he looks at every disengagement that way. But I thought his response was to Elias's dashboard. Is that correct?
Well, I don't think he responded to the dashboard. He responded to Alex, right?
But Alex had in context the dashboard, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. But you have to be very careful. And you have to, first of all, put yourself on mute when you're not talking because we get static. You have to be very careful with interpreting Elon talk. And I wouldn't read into it any more than what he specifically said, which is, they're looking to double average miles to intervention or something along those lines. And he probably just means from internal data. And he said August, assume that's December, and don't go out there buying call options for August, basically. Is that fair? Wave?
Yeah, that's a lot more bullish than I was much more pessimistic and thinking the 5x off Ilias is not that great of a improvement in my mind because it is subjective and it's critical. But if I go with your thesis, that's a lot more bullish and wonder what's happening in August. And is that by end of August, you think?
No, maybe you misheard me. I said give Elon a few more months, if not more, and just assume from his internal whatever data they have. Like I honestly wouldn't read too much into it. Okay. I think if Tesla gets to 500 miles on the FSD tracker per critical disengagement by year end, I think that's success. And you're going to obviously need 2 orders of magnitude improvement from that point to even start talking about robotaxis. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm way. I think I'm not even looking at robotaxi. I'm just looking at going to unsupervised in the car. And if he says 5x of internal and any disengagement, that's really good news, because then we could go to unsupervised.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with all that, but okay. Just for fun, what do you think? And now Luce.
Well, my hope is that FSD beta tracker for 12.5, 12.51, sort of the 12.5x will end up being higher than where it is now. Like hopefully just sort of took a dip. And if that ends up being several hundred, I don't know, I guess I'm hoping that the numbers are better than you're forecasting, but maybe I'm believing Elon too much.
Luce?
So I wanted to say that the problem of making FSD feature complete right now is basically that a lot of work could go to waste when the fleet will be able to communicate with each other. Let's say, for example, that you need like the car to park in a parking lot, okay? And let's say a specific slot has a problem with FSD. So now you spend all this time trying to fix FSD to recognize this parking slot correctly. But if the fleet can communicate with each other, basically it only needs to correct itself once. So making FSD feature complete right now would require a lot of work that will go to waste.
I agree. Let me get Waves and Just for Funds and Luce's estimates to the following question. Actually, you know what? I'm going to pin the chart that I used with Chris at the top of your screens. This is a prediction puzzle chart. Prediction puzzle, I call it. Okay, I'm going to ask this chart to everybody that comes on the one-on-one interviews. And I think it's going to be a good way to, here it is at the top of our screens. It's going to be a good way to kind of track people's predictions and overall, like even when Chris was talking about it, wow, he said, wow, this is hard because like all the predictions need to fit into each other. And that's the whole point of having this chart, right? So let's start with Wave. Wave, when do you think Tesla FSD will get to 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, and 1,000,000 miles between critical disengagements?
It's all in how you define critical disengagement and who's
So
measuring.
if you don't disengage, you get into an accident.
Who makes that determination, Tesla or the user?
You. Yeah, let's say Tesla for your purposes.
So they're using their shadow mode to predict if Tesla is doing it. Can you repeat the question, or should I go look at the chart first and think about it?
You don't have to look at it, but basically the question is, when will FSD get to 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, 1,000,000 miles per disengagement, such that if you didn't disengage, you would get into an accident?
I would say by end of 2024 for the 1,000 and 10,000.
So by the end of this year, you think Tesla will get to 10,000 miles between critical disengagements?
Yes, if they're measuring it and they're able to objectively have a measurement system in place, I'm not a subjective user.
Okay. Just for fun, do you agree with that?
He said end of this year for
10,000.
10,000. So I think I'd probably be a little bit later than that, like early next year.
Wow. I mean, that's still very bullish. If you
Well,
think
just to
that
be
is
clear, because you're defining it as would get into an accident, right? So that's different from probably the beta tracker numbers. So it's like more aggressive, I guess, or a higher standard.
yeah. I mean, that's still pretty amazing. If you guys believe that will happen, that is a 10x improvement in a few months. Right? Is that the way you see it? 10x improvement in a few months?
Yeah, and maybe like half. Essentially, I guess my thinking is, right now the beta tracker, it's at like 300 something miles per critical disengagement. If you say an actual accident is, a percentage of that, it could be probably close to 1,000. Maybe in the next couple months it gets to 1,000 for an actual accident, and then so say it takes another 6 months to get to 10,000.
Okay. I mean, that kind of means that I'm guessing you guys expect that pace of improvement to continue throughout 2025 and 2026. So you expect probably robotaxis to start by the end of 2026. Is that right for both of you, just for fun and wave?
You said 2026?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Wave?
Yeah, in order for them to take liability for insurance, don't know what underwriting would require, but end of 2026 is definitely doable.
Okay. Well, you better load up on call options if that's what you think. Do you guys think hardware 3 will get there?
No, not robotaxi.
Okay, just for fun?
Yeah, I'm really not sure if the current version will get there or not. At least, not initially.
When you say current version, do you mean hardware 4 or hardware 3?
Sorry, hardware 3 current version. Just the other day we are talking about, like Omar was saying, maybe they'll offer an upgrade or something like that, some upgraded package. So just current version, not sure it'll get there initially. It might take longer, if ever.
But you think hardware 4 will definitely get there? Just for fun?
I wouldn't say definitely, but yeah, I mean, it sounds like Elon's saying it could get 8x more parameters, and if you include other improvements, at least it can at least get an order of magnitude better than where it is now. So I think decent chance, not sure.
Okay. What do you make of Elon's comment that AI 5 or hardware 5, AI 5 is going to be in volume production in about 18 months?
I guess, what do you mean, in what sense?
Is that what you expect as well?
I think it's definitely reasonable to assume that it's in the robotaxi. And yeah, I guess it depends on definition of volume, production, but certainly I think it'll be out by then.
Man, that's like as uncommittal as you can get in that answer. I mean, like if I tried to be uncommittal, I wouldn't be able to do that, I don't think.
Sorry. Yeah, I haven't mapped out the exact timelines on the next versions, or like when I think the robotaxi ramp up will happen.
But the thing is, like, why even talk about it? Like, why even, like, he went around and said to people, he unfollowed people and said, if you're going to talk about leaks, don't expect it to follow you for Sawyer. And then now going around and talking about AI5. Why? Right? What do you think? Well, let's go to Wave.
I think sometimes Elon can't help himself. 18 months sounds like typical chip refresh and motherboard refresh. So probably is AI5 is what's going into robotaxi for sure.
Okay. Uzi, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well, having a busy day, but I can't miss my favorite space.
Okay. Well, welcome. Scott?
To your question that you just asked, I would say, as soon as I heard AI5, the first thought that comes to my mind is, well, why do I want AI4 then? Why don't I wait for AI5? I mean, personally, me, I don't think that way, but I know other people have said that, and I think it tends to maybe hurt the idea of people wanting to upgrade because they want to get the latest and greatest and maybe wait. So that's just my thought on that.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Jake McCombs, for becoming a YouTube member. Jake McCombs, thank you very much. This is our now third member who joined YouTube, in addition to Rachel Taylor and Tesla Hype. Thank you very much. YouTube membership is only $2.99 a month. It greatly supports the channel. It also gives you an advanced look at the interview that I did with Dirty Tesla last night. And the feedback from members have been extremely positive. We now have more than 50 members on the YouTube channel. We doubled it yesterday, and more are joining today. And presumably because they want to watch the Dirty Tesla interview. And I highly recommend the second half of the interview. The second half, the first half, maybe a couple of things that you may have heard before. Although actually in the first half, we had Stephanie, Chris's wife, join us and talk about the wife test and her experience. And Dirty Tesla, Chris also talked about his experience with FSD over the last 3 years, how it evolved, what he would rate FSD. All the chapters are at the top of your screens, and you can join as a member to the channel through that link as well. Omar, welcome. How are you?
Hey, doing good.
Oh, welcome to the space. We've been talking earlier. We talked about some geopolitical risk in the Middle East rising. We had Ellie's wife Anna join us and give us her view. Apparently, she's experienced and educated on the topic. She obviously also lives in Middle East with Ellie, and she gave us an overview of what the geopolitical risk is like. And recently, we've been talking about FSD take rate, number of users. We're having some prediction. People make predictions around it as well. We also talk a little bit about macroeconomics. This morning, we got jobless claims rise a little bit, and the yield curve plunged as a result. Anyway, actually, let me just let's just start with you from where we just left off, which is Elon's comment around AI5 being in volume production in about 18 months. And I was wondering, since a couple months ago, he was, not very happy about people sharing leaks because it might impact demand on current vehicles. Why talk about AI5 today if it's not going to be in production for now? What do you think?
Well, he said this before. I mean, 18 months is a long way away. Obviously, we know there's a next generation chip, and there's going to be an AI5, there's going to be an AI6. Like, how dumb do you have to be to not buy a car because AI5 is maybe coming in 18 months? But the time it comes, he's going to be talking about AI6.
Like, how dumb do you have to be to not buy a car because AI 5 is maybe coming in 18 months? By the time it comes, he's going to be talking about AI 6. Meanwhile, you're going to be driving your Ford Pinto around and get rear-ended in your car.
Okay, thank you very much. What do you think about? Thank you very much for those in YouTube live chat for giving me a heads up. It should be fixed now. But we have a new request to speak. Lucha, welcome back.
Hello, Yaman. So I had a question for Omar. So 2 days ago, Dirty Tesla made a video in which he used FSD in a totally new area in which like he don't usually use it. And there was a particular intersection that didn't have anything strange to it. Like it was a really normal intersection, but somehow FSD 12.5 would like totally drive very very badly there. Do you know why? Do you have any idea why that particular intersection was so hard for it?
Well, let me use my psychic powers to imagine this intersection I've never seen before. What was the issue? What did it do that was bad?
So once he tried to go on left when there was another lane left with cars passing by, and totally would crash. Like it was really close to crash. The second time he tried, he was very uncertain and half stopped in the middle of the intersection before trying to take the right way and correcting weirdly to go forward. And it was like this is interesting because this was a new area and everything worked fine as you would expect from 12.5. But this particular intersection that hadn't nothing out of the ordinary was particularly difficult for the software, and it really stuck to me.
Well, I obviously haven't seen the video you're talking about, but it's not going to always work perfectly and do the right thing. The key is really that it does the right thing far more often. So those examples do stick out more, but there are going to be some places where it doesn't work properly. And you might not see anything weird about the intersection, but it may see something weird. There may be something that's really confusing to it. There may be something in the map data that's really confusing. So those types of things can still happen, and you can just disengage and leave a voice note, and in a future build, it'll do it correctly.
Omar, thank you very much for joining as a YouTube member. I see that you finally started to support the space. What changed your mind?
Well, I just was trying to check out the interview with Chris. So, of course, you have to be a member. So I said, okay, well, a couple bucks to hear the interview early sounds like a pretty good deal to me.
Thank you. And of course, I'm just kidding. Omar has been by far the biggest supporter of the space over the last 2 years, really. I think, Omar, you started from the very beginning, right? And you've been here pretty much every single hour that I've been in. So that's pretty amazing. He's also a patron, speaker, essentially a co-host, and now a member. So be more like Omar, everybody. Paul Ryan.
Yes, good morning or afternoon, depending where you are, everybody. I was wondering if it's possible that with the new AI 5, if they're already loading the chip on the car and just not say anything about it as they've done in the past. And I'm definitely going to sign up for YouTube today too. I apologize, it took me so long.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. Omar, do you have an answer for his question?
Yeah, the chip's not in production yet. So they're really still at the design stage. And then they're going to start getting it ready for production. So every car right now has the latest and most powerful chip available on any car. So you don't have to worry about it. Get a Cybertruck, Model 3, Model Y, they've all got the latest chip. And for the
Ramesh.
next 18 months, it's going to be the latest chip.
Ramesh.
So human eye has the resolution of 586 megapixel. Do you guys think AI-5 would be good enough for robotaxi, and what could be the camera resolution?
Probably even hardware 3 resolution is sufficient. You know, humans have 500 megapixels and they're all looking right at their phone. Okay. So they're seeing everything on their phone in very high resolution, but unfortunately, they're not always seeing what's on the road. There's sort of this misconception that you need some super high resolution to do self-driving when the reality is a car, right? You don't need to see every little detail, every little spot, every little piece of bird shit on the car. You just need to see that there's a car there, right? So there's actually a lot of advantages to having a lower resolution. You get lower latency, you get faster processing time, and you can actually be more responsive, which is more important than like seeing every little piece of bird shit on the car. So obviously, cameras will continue to get higher resolution over time, processing power will continue to increase over time. But just when you look at hardware 5, which is only trained on hardware 3 resolution images and how well it drives, you realize that a lot of people's misconceptions of resolution seem to have not been true. Even like pretty complicated unprotect left scenarios where you've got high speed traffic in both directions, it just does it. Piece of cake.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Since Omar dropped a couple of S-bombs and the YouTube advertisers aren't going to put ads around that, let me just remind everybody that this episode is sponsored by Joa Life. Joa Life has great products. I've heard very good things about their products, and I look forward to using their products when I get my Tesla. If you'd like 5% off your purchases, use the code TSLA Live, and when you do that, I get 5% as well, which goes toward supporting this space. Omar, I saw your reaction over there. I didn't mean it like I have an order in place or anything like that. I mean like when I do get it. But would you like to say a few words?
Well, I mean, if the space blows up, then maybe you can get a Tesla. Actually, we should just donate a Tesla to Yaman. If instead of funding the Patreon, just get him a used Model Y or something like that with FSD prepaid for.
I think that's a great idea. Excellent idea. I totally support that idea. And I also would like to say thank you to No Clue and the person who has an interesting name. I think they're testing me to see if I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. It is Akupo F Videos and also Dave's Bits. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining as members. The link to YouTube membership is at the top of our screens, and you get advanced look at my interview with Dirty Tesla, which members had excellent feedback on. So far, it's been great. And I highly encourage people to leave comments in the YouTube channel as well with your feedback. Like, what are the pros? What are the cons? How can I interview the people better? When I have them next on, what would you like me to ask? I also had some audience questions as well. I asked them some audience questions from those who replied to my tweet yesterday saying, what should I ask him? And there were a couple of good questions. So I asked Chris those as well. The chapters to that interview is at the top of your screen. So you can see what is included in the interview. I thought it was an excellent discussion. Stephanie joined us as well for about 20 minutes about the white test. Danny.
My new analogy is comparing FSD with IQ. Hardware 3 may be like someone with 90 IQ, always attentive. Hardware 4, 110 IQ. Hardware 5, a genius that never messes up and can even avoid accidents. So 190 IQ can drive, but maybe robotaxi could be a little bit, fine line.
I like that. I like that analogy. Lincoln.
Yeah, it's a cup of videos, not a cupu video, whatever you said.
Oh, okay. Is that you?
Yeah, it's me.
Thank you. How is that a couple? It's literally spelled ACUPO.
And then F for the of.
Couple. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
A couple of videos. Oh, okay, I got you. A couple of videos. Okay. You were testing me, weren't you?
No, I just joined.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Well, enjoy the interview with Chris, and let me know what you think.
I'd like to
in the
say
replies.
I'd like to say that out of all of the videos I see online, Chris is definitely my favorite when it comes to FSD videos by far of all of the people. Yeah.
He's a very genuine dude. I really appreciate hanging out with him. The couple of times I grabbed a cup of coffee with him, it's been excellent. Ramesh?
I can see some consistent issues across FSD 12 versions. The speed control, blinking yellow and blinking red. So do you think this new way of end-to-end is having issues solving these problems, or is it more related to data?
No, the latest version can handle blinking yellows and blinking reds perfectly, so it doesn't seem to be a persistent issue.
All right, I think next interview is probably going to be hopefully Omar. Omar, are you ready for your interview?
Sure.
I'm going to ask you some tough questions, though. You sure? I'm going to have
Yeah,
you
I mean,
sign a disclaimer.
I don't know how to like predict what date we're gonna have 1,000 Optimus or whatever, but I can, talk about what I do know.
The one thing that really, I mean, Chris actually said a couple of things that kind of left me speechless in that interview. And especially his predictions around Optimus. It's clear to me that he really thinks deeply about everything Tesla, not just FSD. So I thought that part. So I highly recommend,
Yeah.
for those of you who joined as members, recommend watching the last half hour of the video. Definitely watch the last half hour of the video.
Yeah, people don't appreciate Optimus for sure. I mean, the basic idea is, you look at FSD, its ability to adapt to anything, right? We have people all across the country, and they can all turn on FSD and they can have it try and navigate their roads. So, like, the competence they've demonstrated there in creating super reliable software that can move around the world. Just imagine that in a robot body. I mean, we've had robot bodies before, and that's what like the dumb people always say. They go, "Well, I've seen a robot that can dance. That's better than this robot." And we've had a lot of robot bodies, but we've never had a robot with a brain that can move around the world autonomously, not remote controlled, that you could just give instructions to naturally like an LLM. But instead of just, writing a joke for you or whatever, it could actually pick up your laundry, do your dishes, put them in the dishwasher, do any task that a human is designed to do. The potential's bigger than the entire global labor market.
Hey, Omar, did you know that before my one-on-one interviews, I give people a list, a disclaimer that says you have to answer the questions I ask 100%. And I make them sign it. And then I cut their finger and we do blood brothers thing. It's like your promise, definitely a promise. Yeah, it's real. One-on-one interviews are real deal. Dan, you're a member,
Wow.
right?
That's intense.
Yeah. The only way to do it. Dan, you're a member, aren't you?
Yeah, on YouTube.
Yeah. Did you watch the interview?
Yeah, it was great. It's
Okay,
nice to
good.
hear. Yeah.
Did you so one thing that really surprised me, so I see the stats obviously as the creator and the owner of the channel. I think almost all members have at least clicked on it, which is a little surprising to me. I mean, that happened like I literally published it like 1 a.m. And by the morning, most people have already seen it, I think.
Yeah, you have a strong crew of early adapters.
Yeah, that was really encouraging. That was encouraging to see. I really appreciate that from my members. Anyway, Danny, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so with FSD, Tesla amasses a massive amount of clips to teach the AI, but with real world tasks, they're doing it with humans wearing wearing stuff. So I wonder how they'll be able to get a massive amount of clips for every single task. Like just doing dishwashing, that would require a lot of clips, and then every task. So maybe there will need to be a few breakthroughs for a high level AI like Grok to pass on actions from that.
Omar, what do you think? Do you think training Optimus is going to be less or more difficult than training FSD?
It's different, but also similar. So, what they do is right now is they just have people put on these VR goggles and gloves and clothes that sort of rig up their physical movement. So they say, hey, why don't you do it? And we'll actually capture your movements and what you're seeing. And then we'll bring that over to the robot and we can train a model that has the robot do the same thing just by watching humans do it. So I think obviously having a person in a VR rig doesn't scale that well. So I think the next step is to kind of make it so you can have a computer vision model that can watch a third party, whether it's another person in the room or a YouTube video or whatever, and watch them and generate training data on how to perform the task just by looking without them having to wear a VR motion capture suit. And then, just having the bot do things, and it could be human controlled. So you kind of put on the VR rig and then you're controlling the robot's body and then you're having it do the task. Um, and then sort of scaling up from there. Then it can do sort of like self-learning. Like for example, in AlphaGo, they had it just play Go with itself and learn the optimal strategies. So there's some strategies where you can just have the robot kind of operate, and let's say it does the task correctly. That's kind of like a positive signal. Let's say it drops the thing that it was supposed to be moving around. That's sort of a negative signal, and it can sort of reinforce some of the best paths that way. So there's obviously a ton of new challenges training for Optimus compared to FSD, but the core of it is the same type of um, end-to-end learning that you see that's driving the car.
Thank you. Uzi?
I mean, my gut says it would be harder for Optimus. As far as I'm aware, Tesla's limited by what Omar was describing with like teleoperation. They have these meta quests, and there's acting out the action they want Optimus to perform. But Jensen Huang of NVIDIA is making their own program, and they came out with like a alternative solution to scaling up teleoperation, where they have something called robotaxi, and with that they conjure up like many different visuals of the same action in this, like, I guess, simulated world. And then they have something called mimic gen, where they have the robot, I guess, simulate different motions that they could do to perform the same action. And so by doing those two different processes, on top of, they're using an Apple Vision Pro to train their robots, Tesla could probably use some of those solutions. And it does seem like those data scaling factors are harder for the humanoids than for robotaxi overall.
Paul Ryan.
Yeah, what's interesting too is that the robot is navigating, you could even say a 3-dimensional, if not a 4-dimensional plane, whereas a car is more or less just 2-dimensional. So I think that could add a layer of complexity. But I think in some ways it's easier for a robot to be trained because of the videos inputs and using a VR suit.
Okay, Wave.
Yeah, sorry, I'm having some difficulty with hearing you, but I think you asked which one would be harder. I think based on use case, for simple use case, Optimus can actually be easier, but for more complex use cases, it would definitely be harder. I agree with
Is he breaking up for you
Optimus
guys as
being
well?
able.
Is Wave breaking up for you? Okay. Wave, I think your connection is the problem here. But we got the gist of what you're trying to say. All right. We have a couple other topics to talk about. Omar, yesterday's space, when I was reviewing this space for my patrons, as I summarize it for them, I noted that you mentioned Toyota is having some issues. And in yesterday's auto line, they also talked about Toyota. They said Toyota going from bad to worse when it comes to certification troubles. How serious is this issue for Toyota? I noticed, I note that they stopped production of certain models, but they didn't say what percent of their overall production is now stopped. What do you think around that topic?
Yeah, I mean,
Oh wow, their stock is down 7.5% today.
yeah, and check out Mobilize too. I mean, this is really the reality, and these guys have been some of the biggest anti-EV in terms of legacy automakers. They've been pushing hard against EVs, saying no, hybrids are actually the better strategy. And when you look at their regulatory situation, I mean, almost every one of these legacy OEMs has hit a scandal like this, where they've been shown to not be complying with the relevant standards. And in many cases, they've been shown to be polluting more than the legal limit. So the situation is really even much worse than people think. They think, okay, the regulation is at this limit, and that's really all that we're seeing from these cars. When in reality, there's routine non-compliance across virtually every brand all across the world. And these scandals tend to emerge regularly, and the companies always end up paying pretty huge fines over it.
I mean, this 7% drop in one day in Toyota stock, that can't just be about certification troubles, or is it?
It's a serious hit to their reputation. They have a stop sale on multiple brands. That's now expanding to several new vans. I forgot the name. It's a Japan only brand, but it's a people mover van. So it's now expanding to new models. And I believe their June sales were down about 6% as a result of these certification issues.
Interesting. Thank you. We also have overall markets declining quite a bit today. NASDAQ down 3%, NVIDIA down 9%. As of right now, all chip stocks are down. Some of them are down double digits. Healthcare sector is up. Consumer defensive stocks are up. So this is a major drop, likely due to macroeconomic concerns. The yield curve is down 14 basis point. 10-year treasury yield is down 14 basis point today to 3.97. So now below 4%. That was seen as a critical point. Earlier today, we got the initial weekly claims for unemployment benefits rise more than expected. This is all in line with what I've been tweeting under macro analyst. If you like to follow macroeconomic analysis, follow macro analyst, the co-host. We talk about it here every now and then, but most Tesla investors don't want to hear about macroeconomics, although I think it's a very important topic. Oil prices are also down to $76 per barrel. Omar, do you think the global economy is going to hell in a handbasket, or do you think this is a blip?
There's serious issues in the global macroeconomy. So things aren't looking very good. But in a way that may actually be good, we do need to see a little bit of a slowdown before rates start coming down to justify that. When you look at some of Powell's remarks this week, he said, yes, the September rate cut is on the table. It's a potential. We haven't made a decision yet. But if the economy remains very strong, then it may not be justified, right? So we do want to see a little bit of weakness. We're starting to see it in the US economy. We're certainly starting to see it in the Chinese economy, which is part of why Mobileye's shares are down over 20% today. And it's a troubling situation overall. You are seeing things start to slow down. You're seeing a lot of cracks start to form. But we do have a lot of room for monetary stimulus. If there was a slowdown, simply, lowering rates should be able to give us a softer landing on any sort of recessionary events or any slowdown in the economy.
Okay, so let's say the unemployment rate starts rising rapidly and the Fed starts cutting as a result, maybe even sooner than the September meeting. And let's say they cut 25 basis points. Do you think that would be enough to stabilize the economy?
No, I mean, obviously, 25 basis points doesn't really make that much of a difference. But if you're starting to see cuts of 25 basis points throughout the year, every meeting they go down 25, 50 basis points, then the market starts to catch on to the fact that rates are going down, expectations, economic sentiment improves, you have financing conditions improve, and you start to see maybe a lessening of the slowdown as monetary stimulus is intended to do. So it's troubling, but we have a lot of dry powder to soften the blow. And of course, the Fed doesn't just act dramatically and make a 100 basis point cut or something. They're going to do it slowly over several quarters or even several years. And who knows what the terminal rate is going to end up being? Is it going to be 0% to 2%? Probably not. I think it'll probably be a little bit higher than it was before, but it's certainly going to be at a much lower level than the current levels. And, new and used car payments have risen, more than $100 a month as a result of these rate increases.
All right. Any other views on macroeconomics? Please request to speak. I see Machine in the crowd. Machine is being shy today. But I hope that changes. I hope he grows a pair and comes up to the speaker board. What do you think about Hertz comments? Hertz recently said that they're going to continue to sell Teslas and they are accelerating, I think they said, their sales. Do you think this will impact Tesla's resale values in the near term? Do you think they're trying to scapegoat Tesla? I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think they're trying to scapegoat Tesla for mismanagement of the company, for Hertz mismanagement. Paul Ryan.
Well, this one hit pretty close to home. My wife actually worked for Hertz for a while. And when they restructured the first time, I bought a lot of stocks, bought warrants, and they were trash now. But it looks like their move to buy Tesla was kind of a public view of we're innovative And Elon kind of shot it down by saying, just so everyone knows, we don't have any agreement with them. And that kind of hurt them a little bit, I think. But the fact that they bought the EVs and they didn't have an infrastructure in place, say at the actual airports to support all those cars, it kind of created, kind of emotional problem with customers not knowing how to charge. They didn't give them proper instruction, and that's the biggest problems. They weren't educating their customers how to use Teslas, and these are people who were first-time adopters. It was a great opportunity for Tesla to be introduced to the masses, but I think Hertz failed in their ultimate deployment of these cars.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an understatement. I wouldn't be surprised if they go bankrupt again. Because on the other hand, you have Carvana saying Tesla Model 3 is their best-selling used car. So, well, I mean, I guess to the extent that somebody's looking to buy a used car and you don't mind maybe a little higher mileage, you can go grab a used Model 3 from Hertz for less than $20,000 and get that $4,000 credit too on top of that. In other news on macroeconomics front, I posted through Macroanalyst that there was a Midtown office building that sold for 97.5% discount in auction. So if somebody's looking for an office building in Midtown Manhattan, you can grab it for pennies on the dollar. Uzi, you want to go in on one with me?
I know a guy, but yeah, I'll do it with you too.
Thank you. I mean, if we get 20 more members to my YouTube channel, I can grab an office building in Midtown Manhattan. We can host Tesla Live in the office.
Tesla Live in New York City. I think that's the peak.
Yeah. About Tesla, how are you? Welcome.
Hi, how are you doing?
Any news on your end?
Yes, I just have a few minutes to update everyone. So basically, there are two updates today. I posted both of them on my timeline. The first one is about this summer release, which is seeing a big wave after another. So it's now going to 20% of the global fleet. So it's pretty big, wide rollout, primarily to cars without FSD. But this is the bunch of new features and everything, and it goes to all models, all years, pretty much, and it also includes the Cybertruck. So it's a pretty big update for those who are not into FSD. Although it does help some FSD customers because it brings to FSD to some older cars that were not eligible until recently. And then on the FSD front, so that V12.5.1 is now installed on about 8% of the Tesla fleet in the US and Canada. So the rollout continues. There were a couple of, there was a bigger wave yesterday, and I think there was a smaller wave this morning, but actually the yesterday's wave was kind of strange wave. It went out, but then it stopped, rolled back, then it went again. So it's kind of maybe there was something going on the back end of the servers and something. But anyway, I was among the ones who got it yesterday, so I'm pretty happy. I did some rides and not much, but I drove about 50 miles yesterday. Had two disengagements, but both were unnecessary disengagements, really. One was just because there was some emergency car was blinking lights. I had to take over just in case. But it actually turned away, so I didn't even have to do that. And the second was my fault totally. So I thought the car was taking the wrong lane, but really it was the right lane to take. So it was actually doing better than I was. But other than that, it's really smooth. I like the version so far.
Thank you very much for the update. What do you make of Elon's comment on Tesla having a good path towards average miles per disengagement doubling in August?
Well, I might be having a little different view on this, on the disengagement rates. To me, disengagements are not random. So yeah, you can look at the statistics throughout the fleet. So, and obviously Tesla can do that and look at what the rates of disengagements are on average. But to me, it's not a random thing. So it's just basically there are certain scenarios where disengagements happen. Like, for example, in the past, I would have disengagements almost all the time on roundabouts. And V12 fixed that. So I'm not getting any disengagements at all on the roundabouts. So depending on which route I would take, I would either have the disengagements every time or I wouldn't have them at all, because those cases, those scenarios don't show up. Right now, I'm still having issues with some blinking lights. For example, there was a case yesterday. I didn't have a disengagement, but I had to push the accelerator to make it force through a blinking red light. It just was a four-way blinking red light, so like a four-way stop essentially. And the car wasn't sure what to do, so I had to push it a little bit. So I think there are still scenarios that it doesn't handle, and depending on if I have too many of those cases, I will have a lot of disengagements. If I don't have those cases on my routes, I won't have those disengagements. So to me, it's like they need to fix certain scenarios, and yeah, they can easily reduce the number of statistical disengagements just by solving those specific scenarios. So I wouldn't be surprised if they increase that by a factor of 2 or more.
Thank you. Luce?
So I wanted to ask about Tesla. So let's say, for example, that Tesla fixes all the scenario that cause problem right now. Would you say that the intelligence of FSD will be enough to be as good as a human? Well, in my experience, this V12.5 still has some issues. So it's not feature complete. It's not just issues, but there are certain things it's just not trained to do yet. So I mean, it doesn't read the signs, for example, doesn't understand some of the signs, and I don't know when those will be fixed. So it's not an issue. It's just something that is not supported yet. So hopefully it will be, and I don't know how much work that would take. One thing they fixed for sure is the driving dynamics. I think the driving dynamics is extremely good in this version, in both 12.5 and 12.5.1. It's so smooth. It's just acceleration, deceleration, how the curves, how it takes the curves. I mean, it's just, I wouldn't do it any better. I mean, I think it's, if someone would be sitting next to me blindfolded, they would never tell whether I'm driving or someone else. They would probably, they could guess because it's driving better than I'm driving now. So
Right.
just, but as far as intelligence, I don't know what that means. It's
Right. It's a vague term.
It's just
Okay.
too many things.
We have 10 minutes to go. 10 minutes to go. I want to thank our new members. We have 9 new members today on top of the 18 that joined yesterday. The link to join as a member to the YouTube channel is at the top of your screens. As a member, you get advanced look at the one-on-one interviews. Yesterday, I did one with Chris from Dirty Tesla. It was an excellent interview. And I'm not saying that because I'm biased and I hosted the interview. It was actually really, really good. And I actually recommend people to watch the second half of the interview. Pay close attention to the second half of the interview. It's going to be a template for all the one-on-one interviews to come. I already have at least 5 people who agreed to do an interview. Next one is going to be Omar. And if you'd like to get access to those videos, early access, become a member to the YouTube channel. It also supports TSLA Live Spaces on X. Thank you very much, everybody. And we have a new member who just joined, Wimpy2, and Paul King, a couple of videos, No Clue, and Omar as well joined as members to the YouTube channel. Thank you very much. Luce.
So let's say that an area is completely mapped out in the sense that the car doesn't need to read the sign because the map data is already there. Okay. And let's say that obviously you don't need to go in reverse because it's not implemented yet. Would you say that in those circumstances, FSD would achieve as good as a result of a human driver?
If the question is to
I was
me,
asking too about
Yeah, Luce, no. I mean, the answer to it is obviously no.
I think it's probably will be able to do in certain restricted areas. I don't see why not.
Will be in the future, but I think that's a very simplistic way to look at it too. Like there are certain functions that Tesla FSD and autopilot even has been doing, like lane keep, way better than humans, right? But until you get to a future complete, like what do you mean by what if you didn't have to reverse? What if you didn't have to do 3-point turns? Like those are things that Tesla will have to solve before you go into, like it doesn't even identify emergency vehicles right now. It kind of shows a sentence on the screen, but that doesn't act on emergency vehicles. So before you solve that, I think it's like you're focusing way too much on a hypothetical scenario that is kind of irrelevant. Paul Ryan.
I think we're in the right path though, because I mean, right now the current build, it will actually move out the fast lane when you're going fast, like 80 miles an hour, say in a 70. If a car behind you is doing 85, it will actually move out the way, and that's very impressive.
Okay. Thank you, Hustletown, Texas, for becoming a member to the YouTube channel. Grant.
Hey, just joined. Sorry. What are we talking about?
We're talking about you.
Happy to do an interview. 5 minutes here.
What do you think about Elon's comments? When are you joining my YouTube channel as a member, Grant, and get access to this dirty Tesla video?
I don't know how to do it anonymously. I mean, I'll look into it. I'm down in Austin this weekend, Yaman. You want to hang out?
Yeah, anytime you want. Just text me. We should do a one-on-one interview. Create a YouTube account with your anonymous, whatever moniker you have. Actually, I don't know if you need a YouTube account. I can just do it with your X account. I'll send you a link to StreamYard. I'll host it one-on-one, and you can keep your camera off. And we can talk about predictions and kind of get your name down on some of these predictions that Chris made.
Would be happy to.
Yeah? When?
I don't know, a couple weeks. I'm pretty busy right now, to be honest. But would be happy to. I mean, I feel like if we'd done this 2 years ago, I would just be able to brag to everybody about how right I've been about, the challenges and deliveries, gross margins. It's tragic it didn't happen already.
Better late than never. So give me a date and we'll do a one-on-one interview. I want a one-on-one with you.
I'm looking. We'll do a Friday in 3 weeks. Just say like August 23rd.
Okay, 5th Friday of February. I got you. All right. Anything else? Any other questions, comments, tips and tricks? A YouTube member says, most of all of my disengagements are easily fixable to improve 2x or 10x. 37 mile per hour in clearly posted 25 mile per hour neighborhood, not recognizing that entry gate has opened. All very fixable, bright future ahead. We're going to end on that positive note. Thank you very much, everybody. I highly recommend joining YouTube as a member so you can watch that interview with Chris. The link is at the top of our screens. We'll be back tomorrow at 1 Eastern, noon Central, 10 a.m. Pacific. Take care, everybody. Have a good night.
Görüşürüz. Güle güle.
Görüşürüz güle güle.